after a run of more straightforward fixtures for ITFC. The run-in starts to intensify with a trip to familiar foes. This is the Blue Monday podcast. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, discussing Ipswich Town up or down since 2015. I'm Richard Woodward, and this is the Prematch show brought to you in partnership with our friends at the Greyhound Pub in Ipswich. We're available every week on podcast and video, and tonight we are live, so we want to hear from you in the chat. And joining us to chat about the Barry Knight derby, Joe Fairs. I thought I'd get that in early, trigger a few people. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, looking forward to the big game on Saturday. It's now, this feels like the next 5 games are going to define whether we're going to be getting in that top 2 or settling for the playoffs, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. Bolton. It's always Bolton, isn't it, as well? There's this weird kind of magnetism about us, perhaps. I don't know, when it comes to playoff and promotion, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be drilling into Bolton. That sounds wrong, doesn't it? In a bit more detail later on. But as I said, we are live. We want to hear from you if you've got any predictions, if you've got any lineup thoughts, any other business that you want to raise. Now is your time to get it in the chat. Let's do a bit of a roll call and see if we've got Lee. Good to have you with us. Hello, Charlie. Matt's with us as well. Some of the the Telegram army. Good to have you guys here. Michael, good day to you from a damp and dull Brisbane. I'm sure it's warmer where you are, Michael. Snowy, says Charlie. Evening to David. Good to have you with us. Evening from Andreas. From Chile, Reykjavik. Yeah, actually, I think you probably win that quiz. Ashley, good to have you with us as well. Bluey, good evening, one and all. Yep. Stephen, good to have you with us. Matt, crikey, Seb looks a bit different this week. Yeah, a little bit. Well, what's the? Oh, he'll be listening to this. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, Matt. You tried your best, but I'm not going to bite on that one. Flim Flam, good to have you with us. John B, look at all this. A lot of excitement, and the score predictions are coming in as well, Joe. But let's start with some matters of more real short-term business. We had Mikey, Seb, and my thoughts on Accrington. What are yours after a pretty comfortable 3-0 win?
Yeah, no, it was just one of those professional performances, wasn't it? I don't think Accrington really didn't seem to put up much of a fight, really, did they? I thought they were very poor side. They sort of pressed high and tried to play that way, but we were quite comfortable at getting through them. And it just surprised me, even in the second half when it was 2-0, they didn't seem to have any urgency about them to get back into the game. It was just a game that allowed us to make our substitutions, get the players rested, because obviously Bolton didn't have a midweek game, so you're sort of playing a little bit of catch up there. But no, we've come through this run. We looked at the run ahead and said, look, we need to win all these games, especially after we drew Bristol Rovers at the start of that run, and we have done. We've comfortably won all 4, really. MK Don's the only one that was sort of not by more than 1 goal, sort of that wasn't by 3 or 4 goals, and yeah, that was only 1-0, but that was as comfortable as a 1-0 as you'll see, bar a mad 20 seconds in the game.
Question from Alex here. Opinions on the red card on Tuesday. And Alex says there's an appeal. Is there an appeal by Accrington? John Coleman didn't sound particularly happy at full time, did he?
He didn't sound happy about anything. I thought his press conference was an absolute horror. It was just an absolute joke, really.
Wasn't it?
Every time we've played them, he's moaned about everything. Like, his moan was that they weren't allowed to time waste in the game, and
the crowd got on their back. Yeah,
it's not fair, and this and that. And it's like, okay, fine, boring. You're boring, John. Shut up, move on. But the red card, and he talks about the ball was going to the corner flag. It's like the ball went straight ahead, just outside the 6-yard box. It was one of those ones, I think, because of the game state at the time, with it being 2-0 in the 92nd minute, I don't think anyone would have cared if that was a red or yellow card. But I thought Harry Clark could quite easily have, maybe not easily have got there, but the ball doesn't go that far ahead of him, and he's flying down there. And if the keeper doesn't fly into him, he probably goes around him and scores. So
yeah,
I can see both ways. But if that was at 0-0, I think more people would think it was a red card than it was at that stage of the game, because it didn't really matter at that stage of the game. So no one really cared.
Exactly right. And I if they have appealed, as per Alex's message there, then I'd be surprised if it's upheld. I can understand why they'd appeal, but I'm also I'd be really surprised if it's
It
overturned.
was just crap goalkeeping. You're 2-0 down in the 92nd minute. Why are you flying out into someone and giving the ref a decision to make? He's only got himself to blame for it. I don't see any appeal being successful on that one. And hopefully we don't have to play Accrington again, because they are just, I don't know, John Coleman, Andy Holt, see you later.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, very diplomatically done. Well done, Joe. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that appeal goes. But yeah, job done. And as you say, I think a lot of us were looking for maximum points out of this run of games, and we've done what we required to do, haven't we? And built that confidence, got the clean sheets as well ahead of the arguably more trickier games, if we're being honest as well. So yeah, good stuff there, Joe. Evening to Seb. I don't know if he's sticking around for the whole thing, but I'm now even more apprehensive about the success of the show without Seb. But a well-earned night off, yet he's still watching it anyway. So good on you, Seb. Thank you for all your help researching Bolton. Joe, we haven't had an opportunity since it happened. You haven't been on the pod, I don't think. We waxed lyrical about the Barbrook twins in the FA Youth Cup run. And have they both now signed deals with the club? Do you want to talk about that and give us your views on them?
Yeah, no, they've both signed professional contracts with the club, and both signed fully deserved professional contracts with the club, because they've been excellent. Like I say, I haven't seen them as much as I'd like to, but in all the Youth Cup ties, especially, they're the ones that have stood out in every game, really. I think Finn especially has stood out, and Harry's looked solid at the back. But no, two very good players, both good sizes, good physicality. That sort of thing that sometimes the youth players who do well, you sort of think, oh, are you going to have that about you to step up? They both look like they've got that, both playing quite a bit of under 21 football this year, both obviously being twins, local boys together. There's a good article in the paper, I think ahead of the Liverpool game, about how they were sort of Ipswich fans growing up, and a lot of photos of them being sort of 6 or 7 going to games in their young Ipswich shirts, which, like I say, I'm an old softie for stuff like that. You love to see the sort of young people wearing Ipswich shirts as kids, playing for Ipswich as adults. And no, they both fully deserved it. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could have a pair of twins play for the first team for us? That would be great. Obviously, stuff like that never happens, and probably one will fall away and it will go from there. And most players don't make it, but if they could make it, that would be fantastic to see. And
both look extremely gifted with the ball at the feet. Can play in multiple positions as well, I think, or is that more Harry than?
Well, Harry tends to play sort of left back, and he has been playing a fair bit of centre back as well. So he's a sort of a left-sided defender. Gets up and down well. Like I say, a good height, good size, and can win his headers when he's playing centre back. Where Finn has been a central midfielder, but he's also played centre back a couple of times. So yeah, anywhere throughout the pitch. But I don't think he's worn the captain's armband. I think Jack Manley has, but he has been the sort of the captain on the pitch, the loud one, the one that is driving the team on through the midfield as well. So no, both look good characters, good players, and they've both got a good chance.
And they're a good height as well. It sounds weird to say about youth players, but you know that youth players tend to, get physically stocky at some point, but it's very difficult once you're at a certain age to grow high. But they both are quite tall, aren't they? Probably,
yeah, especially when you're playing those roles in the middle of the pitch, where you do, like, if you want to be even a fullback these days, you need to be able to win your headers, don't you? Coming across, even someone like when you look at Leif Davis, he's probably 5'11", and he can win his headers as well. It's just very, very difficult if you don't have that size, unless you've got sort of a gifted attacking player or a sort of metronomic midfield player. You need some size in there. And even when you look at someone like Cam Humphreys, who's not small, he's still struggled physically at times this year, hasn't he? In the middle of the park, when you've got to win your headers, you got to get the right side of players. They both look like they have that as well.
Yeah, exactly right. We'll await their hopeful progress in the first team with definite interest, and pre-season may be an opportunity for them. Who knows? But yeah, great news. And as you said, Joe, I quite like the club probably likes the potential media interest around playing some twins, won't they? So,
especially if you got to a stage where one kicks on really far and the other one doesn't quite as much, you could keep them both signed onto the books. And if one was to get suspended, you could just play him and pretend he's his brother.
Yeah, there you go. Right. There's a film plot there somewhere, I think. Finally, in bits of housekeeping news, ITFC women conclude they had a similar run of home games and clean sheets and wins themselves. They've got a final of their quadrology, if that's the word, quadrily or whatever, against London Bees on Sunday. Head down to the AGL Arena, get behind the Tractor Girls, because it's 6 games unbeaten, 4 wins on the bounce, 4 clean sheets, up to second. So looking positive. They're building for hopefully a big finish, like the men's team. So head down to the AGL. Depending on when you're listening to this, you can buy tickets up to midday on Friday. But head to the turnstiles on Sunday, and you can pay to get through the gate and listen to me drum, Joe, and be all kinds of annoying to the opposition, which I'm sure they love. How did you find your AGL experience last week?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, the only problem was I was a couple of minutes late for the game, so when I was trying to talk to the turnstile operator, he couldn't hear me because there was some idiot drumming just next to the turnstile. So it was a bit of a problem there. But once I was in, no, it was good. I had my family with me, so we went round to the other side of the pitch to see it from there. I couldn't handle the Ipswich ladies ultras there.
Yeah.
I didn't have enough about me to handle that. So we went around there. No, it's good. My kids liked it. They enjoyed it. They're sort of getting into every football you can think of at the moment. They want to sit and watch, and I stayed and watched it. Really good. Nice little town in Felixstowe as well. We'd been down there, had a walk along the beach, and had a little bit of lunch as well before we went up there, right in the town centre. So no, it is a good. I'd say there was 505 people there last week, and I remember I went to a game last year, and I think that was about 300 or 400, and that was seen as a big attendance. So it really has grown. There's a lot of families down there, a lot of people down there, decent atmosphere, rattling on the fences when anything happens there. So no, it's good experience for anyone to get down there, especially if you've got young children and want to take them down and do something.
And worth noting as well, our own Lucy O'Brien, as sponsored by the Friends of Blue Monday, is up for February's Player of the Month as well. I think the vote closes tomorrow, so you still got time to give Lucy your support, but a lot of strong performances. Megan Waring's winning the vote right now, but we're definitely got to support one of our own, haven't we? So good luck to Lucy there.
Yeah, I can only comment on the game I saw, but I thought she was excellent. I think she seems to be a couple of seconds above everyone mentally on the pitch for when she receives the ball sort of on the turn and keep it there. And sometimes playing balls that the other players around her don't read, but she does seem to have a real good footballing brain on her in that role. So no, she's a very good player to watch.
Definitely. Yeah, endorse that one. David, thank you as always for your support for the pod. Thank you for the super chat. If you want to do likewise, if you're watching on YouTube, you can do that. There's a super chat option near the live chat. But as we mentioned, always a thumbs up on YouTube, a thumbs up on Facebook. Thank you to Stephen, who's already done that. It's great for us. Try and drag a few more people in, nudge us up the algorithms and all that nerdy crap. So, but no, a thumbs up is all the appreciation we need. Words. So thank you, David, as always. Matt here, always a great experience at the AGL, plus Rich on the drum, an added bonus. Yes, and Mr. Waring as well, also on the drums too. So yeah, do head down to the AGL. Right, we can't put it off any longer, Joe. We're going to have to talk about Bolton. You've got some vintage, I guess they're vintage now, shirts behind you. Some big games against Bolton, good and bad over our lifetimes, at least, watching Town. Maybe if you've been born after the millennium, you won't really understand this situation, but some real run-ins over the years, haven't we, with Bolton?
Yeah, well, obviously there was the sort of back-to-back playoff. 2 of the 4 of the greatest sort of games you'll see, or 2 of the greatest ties you'll see. One which went against us on away goals, despite a 4-3 victory at home, with sort of Kieran Dyer scoring a header from outside the box in what turned out to be his last game for the club, and then the one on the route to the Wembley final in 2000, where we sort of we were 2-0 down away from home against Bolton in the first leg, and it looked like we were going to be losing the playoffs for the 4th year in a row, and then we turned it around there, came back here and had probably the greatest game I've ever seen at Portman Road in the 5-3 victory there after extra time. And then I think it's probably safe to say Bolton got their revenge a couple of years later when Freddie Bobic scored a hat-trick against us in the first half, and we just didn't turn up and lost 4-1 at the Tough Sheet / Uni Bowl / Macron / Reebok Stadium. And that basically was the game that sent us down, and we haven't been back since, have we? So some big ties between us, and in that era, sort of Big Sam versus George Burley. But now it's I know we haven't really had, since we've come back down. We've sort of, they stayed up for a long time, didn't they? And then they sort of passed through the championship, that we've sort of avoided them. So maybe something will start to rekindle the rivalry over the next few weeks.
Maybe so. Yeah. Evening to Colin. Great to have a Bolton fan with us. Hopefully you'll find our assessment of your club even-handed and honest. But if you've got insights to share, let us know. But as Joe said, you did get your revenge and help knock us back down to the Championship a year or so later.
I stayed up at our expense, really, and then had 7 or 8 years in the Premier League.
There are definite scars on both sides. So, yeah, I think probably, as you said, that 5-3 at Pullman Road will definitely live long in the memory. As for the current crop, Joe, both of us probably a bit depressed that these days we're plying our trade in the 3rd division. But Bolton, very similar story to us. Obviously bounced back, as you mentioned, from League Two. And a season of consolidation and improvement last season and going really great guns this season, aren't they?
Yeah, well, sort of under Ian Evatt, who did a sort of brilliant job at Barrow, getting them out of the National League into the League Two before jumping ship to go to Bolton. Obviously, a big step up in size of club, and I think had he played for Bolton previously? I'm not sure, but it seems his teams, and they have done it the last sort of three and a half years now, this season as well, have been relatively slow starters to the season up until sort of October, November time, and then the finished seasons like a steam train, and they sort of jumped from about 18th to sort of 3rd, I think, in League Two over that time. They like us, they were too far behind the sort of really high standard set last year, but really sort of moved up the table quite quickly, but just before sort of hitting that glass ceiling that was there. And this year again, they've started the season okay, and now they've been really good in the second half of the season, up until maybe the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, where they've not been on the greatest run. But you sort of see them in their, what are they, 4th or 5th at the moment? 5th, I think. But they're 3 points behind us, aren't they? Or 6 points behind us, and we've got a game in hand, haven't we? So
yeah,
we
at the moment 63 points. Won 18 of their 36 games, drawn 9, lost 9, and a very healthy goal difference there as well. But as you mentioned, yeah, a few bits and pieces. Generally, away form is where the points have been dropped. We'll talk about the 0-0 with Morecambe shortly, but home form is really good, isn't it? 40 points from their 18 games, they're 14th. 4th best home record in the division.
Only conceded 9 goals at home.
Only conceded 9, only lost twice in the league. No defeats at all in any competition since the 5th of November. That was to Barnsley in the FA Cup. Last league defeat was Oxford's end of October. So a fortress there. But yeah, a little bit of iffiness away from home. And I don't know, Joe, they've managed to qualify for the Pizza Cup final like Plymouth. Is this a potential distraction for them?
I think it's just one of those ones that's looked at in hindsight, isn't it? If they win the Pizza Cup and go on and then win the playoffs, it's seen as, because they won the cup, that inspired them to get the playoffs. If they lose in the final and win the playoffs, it's that setback pushed them on. If they win the Pizza Cup and lose, it's because they had played too many games. I think that's just something that just writes its own narrative, really, that one. I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference. I don't think anyone's going to be taking their eye off the ball from the management all the way down through the playing staff. So I think it's just a good thing. It gives their fans a good day out at Wembley, and I'm sure for a club of their size, they've probably sold all their tickets out. I know Plymouth have sold all their tickets out, so it's great to see what will be a big attendance in the Papa John's final.
Colin here, helping us out. Bit of a bad run recently. Lots of games. Yeah, interesting that Bolton have managed to schedule their games and get them play. They've played more than anyone else, I think. So quite a few games, but seemingly out of choice, Colin. So interesting. And a few injuries as well, taking their toll. We'll come on to those shortly. Last time out, 0-0 at Morecambe. Morecambe's not an easy place to go, is it, Joe? We know all about that.
No, it's a tough place to travel to, isn't it? And it's a wet, windy ground. Every time I see a game there, it looks wet and windy up there. And Derek Adams knows how to set a side up, and Morecambe have been on a pretty decent run themselves over the last few weeks. They seem to have got things sorted. Obviously, we beat them comfortably down here, but it almost felt like they just saw that game as a free hit to work around to win their other ones around it, which they did. But I'd say it's not going to be, well, like for us, it's definitely not going to be an easy game. So it feels like a really, really big game up there this week, doesn't it, at Bolton?
Do you remember the opening day of the season, Joe? It feels like ages ago, doesn't it? And this 1-1 draw.
Yeah, a lovely sunny day. It was absolutely roasting
glorious.
that day, wasn't it? I remember I was down there. I actually got to go down on the pitch at the end of the game, and the heat in that stadium. You think, God, the players in there. And I spoke to Sam Moores, and he was just dripping wet with
Clang.
sweat, and it's just God, it was so hot down there. You could see why the players tired towards the end of it. But we went 1-0 down, and there was a penalty. Leif Davis
Clumsy,
dragged
wasn't it?
someone down on his debut, and I think it was Aaron Morley that scored that, wasn't it? And then Lee Evans equalised, sort of well-worked corner.
Lovely goal.
Yeah, just sort of pulled back and he just sort of put his foot through it to equalise. And from that point on in the second half, we were really on top of the game. And it sort of came down to that moment, the aforementioned Sam Morsey breaking through in the very last minute and just didn't get enough on his shot to lift the ball over or put it past James Trafford in the Bolton goal. And I thought we were the better side that day. And I think if we play like that and Bolton like that again on Saturday, we'll probably win the game.
Yeah, do you remember last season? Not particularly memorable for us, doubled by Bolton. That 5-2 kind of summed up the Paul Cook era, really, and the concern that we had about defending and structure. And Everett just totally schooled Paul Cook, didn't he? There was just those long diagonals, wasn't it? I remember.
Yeah, Afolayan just sort of sitting behind Vincent Young every time we went forward, with Raheem Harper not covering there at all. But I actually thought Everett gave McKenna a bit of a lesson, to be fair, in the return return game at the Uni Bowl, as it was at the time. I thought he was I thought they were good that day. I thought that was at the time when we were looking quite we just didn't look like we were going to score many goals at the time. We looked relatively solid, but I thought they worked us about quite well that day. And I think after that game, I think McKenna learned quite a bit from that one. It seemed one that he learned from. But no, that was 2 very comfortable victories for Bolton against us last season. So I think we're due a win.
We're due one. That was McKenna's first defeat, wasn't it, as well, in charge, I think?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
After a positive start. So, yeah, as we always talk about, McKenna learns his lessons, doesn't he? So
you either win or you learn.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, they quite.
It's like a motivational.
You're like a scholar. Have you got these written down, Joe? No. Let's talk about Ian Everett then. Been in charge since July 2020. You mentioned Barrow, 1.68 points per game. He tries to play the right way, doesn't he, at Bolton? Maybe a little bit too purist. Maybe the same criticism gets levelled at McKenna, but goes about it the right way, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, there was a whole at Barrow, that sort of Barrow-Salona thing, wasn't there? That they were sort of playing goal kick short in the National League, and I think it was John Rooney was scoring a load of goals for them, and he's taken that with him to Bolton. I don't think, like when you look at the stats compared to us, they seem to move the ball forwards as quickly as we do, but in slightly fewer passes, and they press high, but then they're not particularly direct when they do get the ball there. They sort of win the ball back without really creating a huge amount from winning it back, despite being a high pressing team. So, but like I said, they're a decent side that play a similar brand of football to what we do, and they're very well attuned in it, but they just don't have anywhere near as much sort of quality in the attacking areas in the side. When you look at the goals they've scored, it's only really Dion Charles who's scored anything for them this year. Afolayan has scored a few, but he's gone. Obviously, I've signed in Lundulo from Southampton on loan, Adebayor from Burton, who's scored a few for them in the first half of the season, but I don't think he scored for Bolton yet. He's missed a few games of injury, and they've also got Cameron Jerome, obviously the very experienced striker, coming in from a lot of championship experience. But it's more that those players around them aren't sort of getting on the score sheet, so they're quite heavily reliant on Dion Charles, who on his day is one of the better strikers in the league, but sometimes you watch him, he's anonymous. I'm sure by me saying that, it will be a game when he's sort of unplayable on Saturday, and he has those games, but they just don't have many goals in them, and the goals seem to have dried up in recent weeks as well in their run. Yeah,
it was Adebayo from Burton, £500,000, 11 goals for them. So he's definitely in the shop window for someone. But I think has missed a few games for injury. I think he has got off the mark in the league, I think once. But he'll be available. Cameron Jerome getting on a bit.
Signed on the free, a quality player, isn't he?
But yeah, he's also been out with a back problem, I think. But he might be available as well. I don't know about the stats about Nlundulu. I need to see if I can find that out. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, Dion Charles, in terms of the forward options, definitely dominating the goals. But they do similar to Ipswich, they are spread around the pitch about as well a little bit.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Connor Bradley at Portman Road and at the start of the season. I don't know if his form has just slowed up a bit. There's been his sort of first loan spell, playing a lot of games, but no, he looked a really good player. He's had a really busy season. He's played a lot. He's also played 7 or 8 times for Northern Ireland this season as well. So he's probably got sort of 40 games under his belt already, and he's only a young player without a lot of senior experience. But Bolton have obviously got the advantage. They didn't have a game this midweek, so even though they've had a lot of games in a short period of time. They have had a week off, a week on the training ground, a week to get players fit. Collins mentioned that all 4 of those strikers, Ilandulo, Charles, Jerome, and Adeboye Ajo, all fit. Whether they're all fit enough to start or all fit enough to be in the matchday squad, we'll find out at 2 p.m. on Saturday, I guess. But
yeah,
they seem like they're getting their options back. But hopefully this week comes a bit too soon for him.
Yeah, bench options, hopefully. Yeah, definitely right. And in terms of the departures, I don't. Affeline, I guess, a surprise. I'm not really sure the story there. Off to the Bundesliga too, but a player that always seemed to target us and always do well against us. So I guess that's a benefit that he won't be playing. And Amadou Bakayoko off the Forest Green, who we saw in the recent game at Portman as well. But otherwise, it's definitely strengthening there.
I think they just got a good offer for Affeline from
$500,000, I think, was it?
Yeah,
I might have got that wrong, but
a decent offer from St. Pauli. So
yeah, if he
let him
fancied
go.
it.
Mentioned there, obviously, Shola. I always thought his name was Shortai, but when I watched the highlight show, it's pronounced something totally different to that. But he's been a really promising young sort of English player at Man United for a few years, and this is his first spell of senior football. I've noticed he's won a couple of penalties and has looked sharp on the highlight show, but I can't say I've seen a huge amount of him. But he looks a tricky player and a player that can sort of cause players to foul him when he gets near the box.
And similar to maybe Sheffield Wednesday as well, there's some really good central midfielders there. Let's go through the team. It's a back three. Typically a 3-4-1-2, we think, although Collins suggested perhaps a little bit different there. James Trafford in goal. He's got the most clean sheets in League One. On loan from Man City. He looks a bit of a Jack Grealish wannabe, Joe. Do you remember him from the start of the season? He's got the really short
sleeve shirts as well, didn't he?
The socks around and the tiny shin pads.
I didn't think he was particularly impressive against us. I thought he really struggled against us. I know we only let him one and made a good save at the end, but I thought he really struggled with his kick in on the ball. But when you look at the sort of the limited goalkeeping stats there are, he's one of the top performers, top 2 or 3 performers in the league, really. Obviously, Cooper's a step ahead of everyone, but when you look at the shots, sort of XG conceded and stuff like that, he's really high up there.
And the back line there, I mean, probably the focal point, if you can describe a defender as a focal point, but it's Ricardo Santos, isn't it? Absolute unit. The back 6'5", I think he is. Mbetete there, Gethin Jones possibly as well, but Santos is a very fearsome defender to come up against.
Yeah, and he hadn't scored for years, and then he scored in sort of 2 or 3 recent games. I think he scored about 3 goals in the last 5 games. But he is a player that wins his headers. There's no doubt about that. You're not going to stop him winning his headers, and he can play football to boot as well. I think he's a really good player and one that is just very, very solid.
Conor Bradley, you've mentioned as well, 4 goals and 4 assists at right wing back. He's definitely a threat on loan from Liverpool, isn't he? Declan John as well, left-hand side. Injury to Jack Eder was linked with us, wasn't he? Signed from Cambridge in the summer. There was a brief, maybe a 4-hour link to Ipswich before he already signed for Bolton, I think, in the summer. But perhaps not contributing as many on the goals, but does create chances and a couple of assists for him. But these midfielders, Joe, that I like, Aaron Morley, you mentioned, took the penalty. Josh Sheehan I like as well. I think signed from Shrewsbury, was it? So plenty of options there. Kyle Dempsey as well. There's quality there. There's footballers there, isn't it? It's definitely a team built to play in attack teams, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all ball players, aren't they? And they've got to be to play in the style that Everett wants them to.
Yeah. Interesting insight here from Collins doing really great work for us here. Pep's told Ian Everett that Trafford is back at Man City next season as their number 2. So that gives you an idea of where he's at. Hell of a keeper at 19 years old.
I'd be surprised if they're number 2, but maybe in the first team squad. It seems that if Ederson was going to be out for a long time, I couldn't see him being trusted that heavily yet.
Yeah, I mean, Dempsey's got 4. And you mentioned this kind of weird disparity of the goals. I mean, they are shared around. There's a lot of players on 4 and 3 goals and that kind of stuff. But Charles, 15 goals, 1 assist in up front. Next highest overall in terms of goals scored is then Bradley and Dempsey on 4. Only 6 of Dion Charles' goals scored at home, according to my stats, Joe. But Bradley and Dempsey, 3 of their 4 have come at home. So maybe a different way of playing away from home, maybe a bit more direct, perhaps.
Yeah,
but home it will be.
I could know.
Yeah. Other names that people might be familiar with. John Daddy Budvarson's still there, 2 goals, but a long-term absentee.
He was linked with us at one point, wasn't he?
He was. He won't be featuring. So yeah, there's a lot of talent in there, but we expect a back three. But those players returning from injury may necessitate or may lead to a purposeful shuffle of the pack and configuration up front. So we shall wait and see on that. In terms of the stats, Joe, anything you want to pick out? Goals for 7th best in the league is.
No, they sort of are where you'd expect him to be almost in every stat, aren't they? They're sort of in that sort of 5th to 10th range in nearly every stat. So they're just performing as they should be performing, I'd say.
Yeah, the goals for is the lowest of the top 6 sides. Worth picking that out. 13 shots per game isn't great. 14th, which I guess you'd expect to be higher. So suggests that they're clinical when they do get their chances, but they are creating a large number of them. XG's 45 overall with 51 goals scored, so probably performing against the level of where you'd expect them to be for the chances they create. 56% possessions, probably not a surprise to anyone. Passing accuracy not great, perhaps skewed by maybe some of this more direct played up to Charles perhaps, but 368 short passes per game on average is the 5th in the league. So yeah, it'll be on the ground, guys. We won't expect a huge amount of an aerial bombardment, but you never know. Maybe they'll try and upset us a little bit by playing a bit different. But the big one, Joe, is this defensive stat, isn't it? 9 goals conceded at home, the best in the league.
Yeah, and that's just nothing, is it? Because I guess they've conceded a couple of times in a couple of those games as well. So it's just a serious amount of clean sheets they've kept at home. And does that mean they set up in that way to effectively not concede first, or is it that's just a part of how well they're playing? But you just don't know. But I think we'll score at the weekend.
Yeah, because they do concede quite a few shots. Average 9 shots conceded for every home game as well. So that's not particularly great. Just as you said, kind of hovering in the 5 to 10 bracket there. So they do concede shots, and we will try shots as well, won't we? Try and do what we do best. And XGA of 25 overall for the season with 28 goals conceded means they're not particularly conceding more goals than you'd expect them to be, nor are they out competing necessarily their XGA by too much. So effective, and not surprised to see them in the top 6. Let's talk about us then, shall we? And if you've got thoughts about this, do let us know in the chat about what Ipswich will be doing, and whether there's any rotation you've got in mind as well. I just need to dig up a couple of bits and pieces from the chat, so bear with me. Just a quick one from Neil here, which is really interesting. Are we all hoping that it helps we are going against teams who want to play and attack us? It might leave space in behind for us to exploit. Your thoughts on that, Joe?
Well, I think the teams we've struggled most against are teams that have sat in that real low block against us, haven't they? Where we've maybe had a lot of shots, but not being able to break them down. So I think if the game is played, I'm not expecting any team between now and the end of the season try and go toe to toe with us, because I think if they do, they'll lose. So I think there'll be an element of slightly more to it, but I don't see for a second that Bolton are going to sit in at home against us. No. They've got a brilliant home record. They're a good side. They'll think they can beat us if they play well, and they will be able to beat us if they play well. But if we play well as well, I think we'll have the beating of them. But it's going to be a tight, low margin game, and we've just got to make sure we get on the right side of these margins. Yeah,
and starting to keep clean sheets really does help us there. Michael's keen to see the fullbacks score this weekend. He's hoping that JD gets on the pitch at some point, so all 3 fullbacks score. There's a prediction for you. There's a go and stick a pound on that one, Michael, and see what you get back for that one. But Joe, let's start with the fullbacks. Question marks, but ahead of Tuesday on Leif Davis and his fitness, but maybe a surprise that he played, and he made it way through 2/3 to 3/4 of the game. Do you expect Davis and Clark, or do you think we might get a little bit of a surprise?
No, I'd expect Davis and Clark. I expect if we can pick the team that started last Saturday, we will pick the team that started last Saturday. So Christian Watton in goal, and then the partnerships are developing, aren't they, all over the pitch now, with sort of Wes Burns and Harry Clark on the right-hand side, Leif Davis and sort of Nathan Broadhead drifting over to that left-hand side. You've then got the Wolfie and Burgess who are nailed on at the back. Morsey and Luongo, if Luongo's fit, sort of nailed on there. And then sort of Chaplin, Broadhead, and Ladapo are all working well together. Chaplin works well together with Burns on that right hand side. Broadhead is working well together with Davis on that left hand side. And no, I think we've really settled on our sort of best 11 at the moment. There will be changes. There will be changes needed. Like McKenna's mentioned about Broadhead and Luongo having not played a huge amount of games, that maybe they're players that you'd look at and maybe have to take them off earlier in the game, or maybe not start them and bring them on as subs. But I expect the team to be the same as it was last 11, unless there is something we're unaware of.
From last weekend, you mean, rather than Tuesday?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, from Saturday.
Yeah, as David has said here. And that means Ladapo up front rather than George Hurst.
Yeah, that's maybe, again, because Bolton are a side that aren't going to sit back against us. You might want to play George Hurst, a player that can sort of come in short when we're in the periods of the game where we're dominating the ball, but also sit on the shoulders and keep them pushed back for the periods of the game where Bolton are dominating the ball, because both teams will have their spells in this game where they're in charge of the ball, and maybe Hurst gives you a little bit more on that. But Ladapo's in good goal scoring form, so I think you give him the nod, and I think you let him get up against Ricardo Santos, who's not exactly he's not someone who's really, really fast and is going to be able to sit back and watch Freddie Ladapo. But I just think, I don't know, I just think George Hurst might give them a different challenge at the weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised if he starts, but you just don't know, really.
I quite like the thought of Ladapo versus Santos. That's got a big battle about it. And I quite, Freddie's great back to goal as well. Maybe he can turn him, maybe he can get other people involved in that. So yeah, that might be an interesting one. Another interesting one, Joe, might be on the bench. Flim Flam, could Don Ball be back in the squad this weekend? Who'd have thunk it, eh?
Well, we'll find out tomorrow, won't we? Because I think McKenna mentioned about either playing in the under-21s game. We play Birmingham at 1:30 at Playford Road tomorrow. Is it better for him to play in that game, or is it better for him to go up and be in the match day squad? So I don't see that you're going to take him up there to be the 19th man or the 20th man. So I think he's either going to play tomorrow or be on the bench on Saturday. But maybe a game for the under-21s rather than 5-6 hours on a coach 2 ways and sleeping in a different bed when you come back from injury would be the better way to play it, and then maybe look to involve him against Shrewsbury next weekend. But we'll find out, I guess, sort of probably tomorrow afternoon on that one.
Yeah. Luongo has basically made that second central midfield berth his own, hasn't he? Big game for him tomorrow, potentially, isn't it? Really like the fact that he's in the team now.
I think when you play the way we do, where the fullbacks bomb on, the forward, you play a lot of forwards in the team, and you have just 2 central midfielders in there. Those two have got a real. They've got to give you a bit of everything. They've got to be able to physically compete in there, and they've got to be able to get on the ball. They've got to be able to break the line, sort of passing, running, and doing all that. And both Luongo and Morsey are 2 top players at this level doing that. And like I say, you just need them in there against a side with a mobile midfield 3 like Bolton have got.
Yeah, and the great thing about Luongo, and we talked about this in the Telegram group, that I was a bit surprised by was, the pass for the first goal on Tuesday night. I didn't think he had that in his locker. I knew that he was, a good engine kind of central midfielder, but he's got an eye for a pass. Good at these kind of instinctive round the corner passes, or these outside of the boot down the line.
When he first came to us on loan when he was 19 years old, he was a ball player, really, wasn't he? Rather than a midfielder, he was someone that got the ball down past it and was a really good footballer then. And he's sort of become a little bit more of a competitor than a ball player. But we'll see.
We'll see. Michael here. If Morsey gets booked v Bolton, you could see a midfield of Mass is what we're going with, are we? Mass and Ball for the next game. Possibly, maybe Don Ball's being brought back into the fold because of the Morsey booking risk? Or do you think Morsey's managed this? We talked about this on Tuesday night, and you can still watch our Accrington post-match show and the discussion we had about all kind of things that happened around the game on Tuesday night. But Morsey has managed this booking situation amazingly well. He's done it before, apparently. Do you think he's going to get through to Shrewsbury?
Well, it's only Saturday,
2 games, isn't it?
Well, and a Shrewsbury game to get through, isn't it?
The game itself, yeah.
Well, hopefully he will, because otherwise he'll miss the Barnsley game if he doesn't,
Yes.
Which is going to be a huge game, a game which we could potentially be without Wes Burns and Nathan Broadhead for if they get called up into the Wales squad as well. So we don't really want him to miss that one. But he seems to have played on the line well enough, and he's got through. And now you've got someone like Massimo Luongo in there alongside him, someone who can do the dirty work as well, maybe it frees him up away from that as well. But if he needs to take a yellow card for the team, still I'm sure he will take one, but hopefully he doesn't need to.
And as David said here, a permanent deal for Luongo or an extended deal for Luongo in the summer, do we think?
Potentially, I don't know what Luongo wants to do with it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was talk of him wanting to go back to Australia last summer when he left Sheffield Wednesday, and then he signed on a short-term deal for Middlesbrough in the hope that he could play some football to get into the Socceroos World Cup squad, and it didn't play football or get in their squad. So it's just whether he's reassessed what he wants to do longer term with his sort of life after football, really. He mentioned on the coffee chat that he's doing his coaching badges, so maybe he'll want to stay here, and because with the sort of greatest respect to sort of Shawnee Aluko and Richard Keogh, the sort of two senior players in the squad who are sort of doing some sort of coaching and learning alongside their playing roles, they're not really playing for us this season, and you wouldn't expect them to play much for us next season. So maybe we need a couple more of the sort of senior bods to replace those in the squad, both as sort of doing a bit of coaching and also being able to contribute more on the pitch, which Luongo certainly would do.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Give us your thoughts on Ipswich selection if you disagree or have alternative views to us. If you're Colin or any other Bolton fan, you want to give us any insights, more insights on Bolton, we'll have those as well. We'll go to predictions shortly as well, but we're going to take a very short break.
Innovation Labs is business hub and co-working space with strategic locations across Suffolk. Our aim is to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, business growth, and the development of an AI centre of excellence in Suffolk. Monthly hot desks are available from just £79. For more info, head to innovationlabsgroup.com or contact info@innovationlabsgroup.com. Innovation Labs, providing support for businesses across Suffolk. Locations in Stowmarket, Ipswich, Sudbury, Woodbridge, with more to follow.
Let's do some pluggery. That's the word we use on this show, Joe. Don't challenge it. Don't question it. I can't find a better one for it. As always, we are brought to you in partnership with the Greyhound. Do head there ahead of the game against Shrewsbury next week. Great venue to head to any time of the week, frankly. Apparently does a very excellent Sunday roast as well. So do support the Greyhound. Great football pub, just great pub, full stop. There you go.
Great
and also
cheeseburgers.
There you go. The mighty Morsey burger as well. Definitely worth a look on a match day as well. So go and support the Colin. Before you head off, thank you very much for your insights. And
thanks, Colin.
Two proper clubs. Wholeheartedly agree with that. We shall see how we both get on Saturday. If you want to find out, well, go to the game. But if you want to hear more conversation about it, analyze it, consider where it leaves us, then you can do no better than the Flagship show on Sunday night, 8 p.m. with Ben in the host chair with Craig and Seb. If you missed Seb tonight, I'm not sure you did really, but I'm joking. Are you still there, Seb? I'm trying to tease him out ahead of the predictions bit.
As it's a Northwest game, we did have to get our Northwest correspondent Seb to go to the game and represent on the Sunday pod. So I've taken the bullet for him tonight.
Yeah, exactly right. And we'll look forward to the black and white photos from the tough sheet on Saturday.
They'll be sent down by carrier pigeon.
Exactly right. There you go. Hi, Colin. Hopefully you're not listening to this bit. But Seb will be back on Sunday with the guys to go through Bolton to look ahead to Shrewsbury as well. And merch store's got 20% off right now if you want to get yourself a Blue Monday hoodie. There you go. Other options are available. Head to bluemonday.itfc.co.uk. Everything you need is there. All the links to the shows, all the links to our socials. Telegram as well. Joe, do you want to give a quick plug to Telegram?
Yeah, come and get involved. We've had a few new members join this week, haven't we? And again, the standard of chat has been added to, and the quality has remained high over the last week or so. Some great insights. We're even getting people clipping up bits from the games to show us things that they've seen. It is high quality stuff.
There you go. 2 weeks free trial on us and then a subscription thereafter. Lots of plans in the works for exclusive as well there as well, trying to make that useful. But as always, our shows will always go out free of charge and no change to the regular format here at Blue Monday. So do subscribe, do give us a thumbs up as well. We appreciate that as well. We know that not everyone can afford the Telegram. So all of our content available there, but the support is very much appreciated. A few more bits and pieces in the chat before we go to my least favourite segment of the show right now. Matthew, good to have you with us. I can't see past the team, which has been working the last couple of games. Jackson's success, a big surprise, but it will be Burns, won't it, Joe, on Saturday?
Yeah, it will be Wes Burns. He starts all the games, all the big games for us, doesn't he? But Caden Jackson is a player that's just, whenever he stepped in for Wes Burns in the last 2-3 months, he's done really well in every game, and he's very much that is his role now, isn't that right-sided forward, that right-sided wing. And I've been saying for a number of years, even when we first came down under Lambert, that he was playing wide, and I thought if he really dedicated himself to being a wide man as opposed to trying to still be a number 9, I think he could have probably kicked on a little bit more in his career. But he's still doing well for us, still got another year in his contract, and I think he's just a player that's going to prove important for us going forward still.
Yeah, he's got the pace, hasn't he? And yeah, it's a surprise that maybe it took him so long to get out there. But Charlie D. Jackson's been brilliant, done what has been asked of him. Would like to see him carry it on at Bolton, but I think we suspect Charlie that might be from the bench. But great option to bring on, isn't he? And hopefully full of confidence as well. Lots of chats about Pigeon in the chat, which I'll leave to you guys. Speckled Jim, there you go, as we've christened him. And thanks, David, for the publicising Telegram for us as well. I think I've delayed it as much as I can. We have to go and do predictions, Joe. Here we go. I used to love this feature. It was really good. And now Seb is just fluking his way back into contention every week. Only one correct scoreline predicted from the three of us last week, and it was Port Vale MK. Of course it was. And I even said on the show that I think Lincoln might beat Oxford 1-0, and I didn't have the gumption to change it. Well, that's what's cost me there. So well done to Seb, who's got it back to 7 rounds to my 10. And he's within 28 points. Is that 38 points? You know, it feels like I'm Plymouth right now, Joe. I've just got to hang in there and just do the minimum.
Yeah, but we're coming for you. And
you're the competition this week. And we also need to say thank you to Paul from the Telegram group, who's been the representative. He's been the tribute for Team Telegram. Mark W is stepping in. So Mark is the man with the predictions for Telegram. We want to hear from you as well. So do get your predictions now in the chat for Ipswich v Bolton or any other game you've got your eye on as well. There are a couple of tasty ones, Joe. Let's start right at the top of the screen there. Barnsley versus Plymouth. Talk to us about that one.
I think Barnsley are going to win, but Plymouth always seem to get something. So I went for a 2-2 draw because Barnsley look like they've got goals in them, and Plymouth are spawny enough to always get at least someone out of the game. So I headed back up to
dodgy
that one.
Penalty, yeah.
Yeah. But I do think Barnsley will win there.
Yeah, Barnsley, as we've been talking about, the troublesome team there. Portsmouth v Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, I've highlighting Sheffield Wednesday in bold, but it feels like they're probably on the horizon now. But we're both going for a draw there. Portsmouth much improved, and it's a difficult place to go, Fratton Park, isn't it? Regardless of Portsmouth season, they are in front of their home fans. They do try to put on a show.
Yeah, since Mousinho's gone in there, I think they've picked up sort of 2 points per game, sort of 20 points for 10 games. So he has sort of turned things around there relatively quickly. I think a lot of that is just regression back to the mean, because I don't think they were as bad as they looked, as bad as the results were under Danny Cowley towards the end. So but Sheffield Wednesday are much better than them and will probably win. But it'd be nice if Portsmouth can just try and get something against them.
Just unsettle things. That's what you want. Just unsettle things. We've got Oxford Derby is another one, I guess, for playoff teams. You've got Oxford getting a draw there, Joe. They've lost 4 on the bounce. No manager still.
Yeah, I don't know why I'd put that. Again, I think, to be fair, a lot of the predictions I put are hope rather than expectation, if that makes sense.
Seb's going to love you.
So I just went there, but I don't know. I think there's talk today, isn't there, sort of about Grant McCann going to Oxford?
I thought it was Dean Holden I'd seen mentioned.
Was it Dean Holden? There was Grant McCann and Michael Appleton, two I saw today. But
wow.
But we'll see. But it could be good if they announce someone today. That does always seem to give the club a little bit of a lift, doesn't it?
Yeah. Derby obviously didn't get on particularly well at Plymouth, but then no one really does.
Derby look like they're getting a bit short of bodies as well at the moment.
Yeah,
they're flagging a bit.
I was on Gab Sutton's EFL debate last night with a Burton fan, a Cheltenham fan, a Morecambe fan, a Charlton fan. I felt very out of place. But we were talking about the top 6 race and whether the automatics were done and dusted, and also the relegation fight as well. And you look at Oxford really could get sucked into it if they don't do something. But Derby, we were kind of talking about, it's a very strong 11, and there's a couple of peripheral players, but
they
would
lost
get
the last
injuries.
couple on the road as well. I think they've only got 8 points in their last 6 games. They do seem to.
It's an old.
At one point, everyone said Derby are going to be going for the automatics. It's like, well, no, they're miles off that now, aren't they? They look out of that race, and
there's some players that have had bad injuries in the past. We know about McGoldrick, but these are players in their well into their 30s now as well.
We heavily reliant on sort of David McGoldrick, Conor Hurricane, Nathaniel Mendes-Lang, players that are very, very good players at this level and have been good players at levels above this one, but they are later in their career and sort of having to carry a lot of young players. I think they've only got 12 players over the age of 21, 12 outfield players in their squad that they've named. So it's not going to take a lot for them to fall back.
I've put it off as long as I can. Let's talk about us. If Seb was here, he'd accuse me of being a miserable the Jonah Hilters, Channing Tatum. You are going for a win. Mark is going for a win as well in the Telegram. I guess, do I need to justify myself or do you? Because I think on paper, a tight marginal game is likely to win in a draw, isn't it? So
no, not when you've got 4 wins in a row and 5
clean
sheets in a row.
75% of the possession of the population behind you.
I just fancy us at the weekend. I think it's annoying that Bolton didn't have a game in the midweek. That is something that I will be writing to the EFL about to try and sort out there. Just generally, the game weeks this season are an absolute mess, aren't they? The amount of games some teams have played in the midweek. Sheffield Wednesday have played less games than both us and Plymouth, but yet they don't play and we both play, and it's like it's an absolute mess. So the EFL needs to sort that out. Genuinely, I will.
There you go.
Be writing to them, but I
just Joe Fairs. Yep.
I just think we're going to win. I just think we're brimming with confidence, and we just got goals all through the team. The signings we've made in January have really improved us, and I don't see that. I don't see that anyone would want to be playing us at the moment. But we just need to make sure we win these games so that run, that confidence continues. Because if we make a tilt with the top 2, I would say that starts now, but that started 4 games ago, and we've got 4 wins out of that. We've got 11 games left. We're going to need to win 8 of them.
Yeah,
maybe 7 you might get away with, but you're probably going to need to win 8 of those last 11 games. It's a hell of an ask, and you can't look at games to Bolton. Oh, it's a tough away game. You've just got to go there and beat them.
And there's no reason to fear them either. And what I like, and I've mentioned this already, is you kind of feel like McKenna susses stuff out. He's had a couple of fixtures, 3 games against Bolton now. I wonder whether he might have figured them out. So it'll be interesting to see how we play. But I quite agree with you. I just can't bring myself to predict it. So good on you and Mark. I hope you are right. And I always love being wrong. It happens so often as well. So we shall see. Let's have a look at what the chat says and see if we've got any consensus there. Stephen's going 2-1. How we play means there's always a chance we let a goal in. Albeit we've had some really good chunky clean sheets of late. So we shall see on that front.
If we keep a clean sheet on Saturday, it'll be a new club record, won't it? 6 clean sheets in a row, yeah. It's the third time since we've been in League One that we've got to 5, which is the existing record, but we've never got past that 5.
Well, there you go. Even more reason to do it then, isn't there? Lee correctly, bring back Room 101. No, we'll see it through to the bitter end, Lee, whether I like it or not. He's going for a 3-0. Michael's going for his 2-0 with the fullbacks to score. Lee's going 2-0. David's going 2-1. Eric's got a little bit of my thinking. He's gone for a draw, a 1-1 draw there. Neil's gone 2-1. And we've also got some other predictions here. David's going for a Plymouth defeat. That will definitely be interesting, won't it? And what else have we got? I'm not sure I understand Flim Flam's point about banging the drums, but we'll move on there. There you go. David Tennant Brace. Do you know what that means? Joe from Andreas there?
No, I don't know who David Tennant is amongst our squad.
No, is he Doctor Who? You'll have to help us out there. Casanova, I'm not sure. Matt's going for a 2-1. Tight and entertaining affair, I should say. Neil's also going for a Barnsley win. Flim Flam going for a nervy 1-0. Neil's going for a Sheffield Wednesday. All the predictions here coming in like this. David's going for a 1-1 at Pompey. Matt's giving us some working as well. Probably want Barnsley to beat Plymouth. to help us close the gap, but hope they drop points against Sheffield Wednesday to keep behind us, providing we do the business too. That is okay.
We have to make sure we do the business. That's the only thing we can really worry about at the moment, isn't it?
And Blues going for a 2-0. So there you go. We'll be back next week. The run at the moment of form that I'm on is I'll probably lose and I'll be wrong. So make of that what
we've all got our fingers crossed.
Yep, as always. Thanks to everyone who has joined us for the discussion tonight. Thank you for your insights, your predictions. If you want a shout out or anything like that, or some final rallying cries in Seb's absence, then please get them into the chat. We'll also get Joe's final thoughts, Jerry Springer style as well, ahead of Ipswich Town versus Bolton on Saturday. Again, a bit of time to mention thank you to the Greyhound. Thank you to Innovation Labs. Go and join us over on Telegram. The matchday chat will kick into gear tomorrow evening. A lot of buzz. I'll probably be posting goal footage from yesteryear, so all very worth that. 2-week free trial. Merch store, go and get yourself some Blue Monday branded goods for 20% off. If you're traveling up to Bolton, do give us a heads up, give us a shout out. Let us know you're listening or watching, and we'll always retweet stuff that we see about that, and leave us a review. Why not tell us what you think of us, but only if it's good and nice. And be back for the flagship show Sunday night, 8 p.m. with Ben, Craig and Seb. I think that's all I need to say apart from Joe. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you to Seb behind the scenes as well. Been very helpful, doing a lot of the legwork as always. I'm sure he'll be back next week for anyone who's missed him. But Joe, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Yeah, so there's obviously, firstly, congratulations to Luke Wolfenden, who'll be making his 200th senior appearance at the weekend. I think he's just about to move into the top 4 of players from the academy games for Ipswich as well. I think he's got Matt or Luke Hyam a couple of games ahead of him, and then he'll move ahead there and this will be 4th behind Tommy Smith, Owen Garvin and Matt Richards. And also I spoke about the clean sheet record earlier, 5 clean sheets in a row, which is a joint club record. We've also scored 14 goals in a row without conceding. I have messaged the Renegade stat man to see if this is a club record, because I think it may well be, but I'm going to wait for the Renegade stat man to confirm this. I'm sure he'll confirm that on Twitter at some point. So keep an eye on that, whether we have set a club record here.
There you go. Joe's got all the information. Who needs Statman when you got Joe? But no, quality.
You need Statman to tell me.
Yeah, exactly right. Just the verification is all we need. Joe, brilliant stuff from you. Thank you for your company tonight and your insights. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stephen. Do give us a thumbs up. And in Seb's absence, I'll do it. Come on, you Blues.